I think many of us have played drinking games in the past, something like Never Have I Ever, Beer Pong, or Flip Cup, as a way to get a little bit more lit, a little bit faster, and have some fun with your friends. Well, have you ever played any smoking games to get a similar result? There's actually a few games out there that I've played in the past with different groups of people, and usually it can be a nice way to get really high, especially if getting really high and hanging out is your goal. Sometimes adding a little bit of a game or a challenge aspect can help you get even higher than you were planning to. Now, I don't really view smoking as a challenge for the most part. I have a lot of people come into my Twitch chat and they're like, I could smoke way more than you. And my response is, yeah, cool, whatever. You're the coolest guy in the world. You smoke all the cool stuff. But just know deep down, if there was ever like real prize money on the line, I would smoke you in half. You would pass out from the high of my secondhand smoke. Well, the game that I'm talking about, I've talked about it before, and I'll probably try to play it again, maybe on stream with some other streamers or something in the future. But the game is called Dab Roulette. Now, I've tweaked the rules on this a few times over the years, changed the setup, but the general format is exactly like it sounds. You get a group of people, and you go around dabbing until that group of people gets smaller and people don't dab anymore. So how I would do this back in the day is I would take a gram, usually a couple grams of concentrate to have them all ready, and I would break it into 0.1s. You'd get a 0.1 gram for every dab. Every gram was broken into 10 different dabs, so every dab was a tenth of a gram, obviously. This is more than I typically dab now. When I go through a gram of concentrate, it's not 10 hits. It's usually 15 to 25, depending on which e-rig I'm using. I'm a lot more efficient with my concentrate now. But back in the day when I lived in Colorado and I was getting ounces of shatter at a time, and I had buddies visiting me or family visiting me, and their whole goal was, I want to get super high while I'm here, I would usually bust out this game. I'm like, hey, who wants to play Dab Roulette? Who wants to play my favorite smoking game? So I would set up usually a couple grams. I think the most that we ever went through, I played with like 4 to 5 people mostly. I don't think it was ever more than 5 people. We usually went through about 2 to 3 grams. So I would start to break up the first couple of grams, and usually a lot of people would tap out so quick, so it just turned into me smoking a bunch of my own concentrate. But the game plays like this. You have 4 people. You have all your dabs broken up into 0.1s. I used to play with a honey straw, and then I switched over to an e-nail. The honey straw dabs were a lot faster, and the e-nail hits were a little bit slower. But we had to dab every minute. Every person had to dab on the minute. You know, if it was 5 o'clock, somebody had to dab, and at 5:01, the next person would have to dab. If you didn't hit your dab or start hitting your dab in the first few seconds when the minute rolled over, you were out, and the next person had to move in and take over. So at first, it starts out pretty easily. You're taking a dab every like 4 or 5 minutes. I take a 0.1 gram, person 2 goes, then person 3 goes, then person 4 goes, and then a few minutes later, I'd do a dab again. But when somebody taps out, when somebody can't make their next dab, you have to dab sooner now. So instead of waiting 4 or 5 minutes, you're waiting 3 or 4 now. And eventually, when most of the people tap out and you only have 2 people left, you're going back and forth and you're each taking a dab every 2 minutes until one person taps out. And you're taking a 0.1 gram. Now, like I said, you can tweak the rules if you want to play this. You can obviously do like 0.05s, you could do a 20th of a gram, you could do whatever size dab you want. But when I played, we had just a ton of concentrate, and the goal was to try to go through a lot. Think about that. Every 10 minutes, a gram of concentrate is gone. Every 10 minutes, if you start out with 5 people went through a gram in 10 minutes. Now, I will say the first few times when I played this with a honey straw, I've mentioned it before, nectar collectors and honey straws kind of suck. They're not good for like big dabs. So this was like years ago, like 2016, 2015. I'm doing glowies with it. I'm hitting that shit red hot with the torch. And then as soon as the tip of the nectar collector isn't red anymore, I go in for my dab. That's how I played it the first couple of times, but then after that, I switched to using an e-nail. And I think I was still doing kind of higher temperature dabs at the time. Like I said, it was years ago before I really got good concentrates and got really familiar with dabbing. But on the e-nail, when we played, one of the issues that we had is sometimes your dab would go 45 seconds to a minute. You put a 0.1 on there. Sometimes it wouldn't vaporize all of it in a minute. So usually we'd crank the temperature up a little bit to compensate. But sometimes somebody would be hitting their dab and you'd realize the minute's rolling over. That dab's still going, but it's your turn now. You got to put a 0.1 on top of their little bit of concentrate left. So now you're getting an even bigger hit. So for the most part, very fun game. I played it multiple times. I haven't played it in a little while. I would like to play it again. And I don't know how many times I played overall. I want to say it's more than like 6 or 7 times overall with different groups of friends. But I do have to say, I don't know if it's because I had the unfair advantage because it was usually people visiting me in Colorado when I had a huge supply of concentrate, but I never lost once. I am the Dab Roulette Grand Champion. I've never lost one time. But it's one of those games games where everybody wins. Everybody gets super high. You do that after a nice day of hanging out, take some friends on a hike. We're winding down. We've ordered some pizza and we're chilling and hanging out. What do? Let's bust out the dab roulette and see if we're high enough to watch a movie later. So I think I want to make another video on other smoking games I've played, but this was absolutely my favorite game, my favorite smoking, or I guess it's a dabbing game that I've ever played. It's called Dab Roulette. You could call it whatever you want, but I called it Dab Roulette and it was one of the games that got me super duper high. Smoking's not a competition, but I'm not gonna lose. You could play a similar type of game with flower bowls if you wanted, but it was a little bit easier to manage with dabs. You gotta pack the bowl every time, and that bowl's gonna keep getting dirtier and dirtier as you use it, unless you just have like a bunch of bowls to use or something. But I want to hear, are there any smoking games that you've played? I did say I want to make a video with more that I've played, but tell me some games that you played. Maybe shoot me some of the rules, and if the game sounds fun enough, maybe I can put together a little group to play it with me on Twitch or something. But speaking of Twitch, if you want to get high with me, you gotta follow me on Twitch. I go live after 9 p.m. Eastern every night for a smoke sesh. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can support me for free with Twitch Prime. I think it's called Prime Gaming, actually. And I get a lot of requests for glass collection videos, but I probably won't make one. But if you want to hear about the piece that started my collection, check out this video. It's the very first piece in my super big collection of glass. Have a lit day, my dudes.